Hi there, Adam here. This month's XDA Developers TV is brought to you by the Samsung Smart App Challenge 2012. Enter for your chance to win your piece of over $4 million in cash prizes by clicking the banner at the top of xdadevelopers.com or by visiting developer.samsung.com. Well, now I've been reading in the comments that you guys want to see some cleavage. I saw that the other day in Erica's video, so let's get started on that. Now, a couple of weeks ago, Google announced that they'd have a new tablet available, the Nexus 7. They announced that at 11:35, and I promptly had my order in at 11:36. So today, we're going to do an XDA unboxing of the Nexus 7. So let's get started. Alright, so here we have the Nexus 7 case and the Nexus 7. Let's start by opening up the case really quick. Case. And that's all there is to the Nexus 7 case. So let's find out what's inside of this box. We'll cut these seals here. Here we have the Nexus 7. An important piece of plastic. An accessory box, which contains instruction manuals, quick start guide and warranty. Micro USB cable. Charging adapter with USB capabilities. 5 volts output at 2 amps. Input anywhere between 100 to 240 volts. Got to make sure this goes back in there. So let's have a quick look at this. We'll remove this plastic here. And here's the Nexus 7. Here we have a micro USB port, headphone, pogo pins, power, and volume rocker. So let's turn it on. In order to use this, I'm going to have to put in my password. And here we have a nice Jelly Bean interface. This is running a 3.1 kernel. Let's turn it right back off. And we'll use the case opener tool to separate the back from the front. Now, before anyone makes a comment on this, the difference between a guitar pick and a case opener tool is that little ridge right there. Plus, this is pretty thick comparatively. So let's unplug the battery. This is a 3.7 volt battery, 4,325 milliamps. We'll remove some of the shielding tape here. Now, I'd like to point out right now, this device will not go back together the way it came apart. This tape right here has ripped because it's very flimsy, and they've used 2 different pieces of tape to hold together this black piece right here. So that's something to note. If you're taking this device apart, it will not go back the same way. So let's go ahead and disconnect the speakers, display, power, and touch panel, as well as the power buttons. So next we're going to remove 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. Oh, Asus, why must you put these little covers on top of the screws? So now what we'll do is we'll get under these with a needle. And now we can remove these 2 screws. And one more hidden screw right under the display connector. Let's remove some of these shields here. And here's a close-up of the board for you guys. So this board is built very well with impact zones, I call them. Little holes that provide an area so that if the board is impacted, what happens is the board itself kind of crumples in on itself rather than popping a component off the board. However, I'm not a fan of this tape here. Because this tape is in place on the board rather than conformal coating of some kind, in order to actually access the components on the board, you have to remove this tape. and that tape is never going to go back on the same way that it came off. Now there is a little bit of conformal coating around some of the larger chips on here, and it looks like the JTAG port is located right here. Something I found pretty interesting was that there's 4 buttons on the inside of the Nexus. However, there's only 3 on the outside. Have to find out what that 4th button does. This device is well shielded with copper cladding on the back of it and on the inside of the device. And interestingly, it seems that the near field antenna is not built into the battery, but rather into the back cover of the device. So if you buy a knockoff white cover, make sure it has NFC capabilities. Now you can tell by looking here that there was originally planned a rear-facing camera. The connector's there, the slot is there for the camera. However, Google left it out and they didn't put the connector on. It might be an interesting little project to get a camera hooked up here. Now, a cool feature that wasn't mentioned at Google I/O is that the Nexus 7 actually has a magnetic sensor for a power button. And this is mentioned by Aaron Caston on Google+. What he did was he actually embedded a magnet into one of his cases that he has. Now, you want to make sure that the magnet isn't too strong, because if it is too strong, it'll trigger the device to come out of standby mode from the back, and that's not what you want. Now the first thing that people like to do with the Nexus is to root and install ClockworkMod Recovery. So what we're going to do now is we will open up a terminal, and I'm going to navigate over to the Nexus folder. And in here you can see I have a ClockworkMod image and a Super SU zip file. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ADB push CWM Super SU version 0.94. This is by Chainfire, and I want to put that onto the SD card, and that transfers over really quick. So now next thing we want to do is Adb Reboot Bootloader, and as you can see now I'm in the bootloader. Now normally what you do is just Fastboot OEM unlock, but I have to add the whole path, so don't let this confuse you here. So I'm going to go Pseudo and then the path to Fastboot OEM unlock. So now we're presented with an option. Do I want to unlock the bootloader? Yes or no? And I'm going to say I want to do that, and it will go ahead and clear all my data out of the device. Alright, so now we can see that it says unlock down there. You may or may not be able to see that. I think the resolution on this camera isn't enough. There's a little indicator down here that says lock state unlocked. And so what we're going to do now is sudo fastboot flash recovery CWM grouper recovery.image. And like I was saying before, on my system I have to add in the full path. So let's flash it. And if all worked properly, this should take us right to ClockworkMod Recovery. And that's the way we do an XDA unboxing. Now you're going to have to accept the fact that when you do a Fastboot OEM unlock, you're going to wipe the data on the device. So just do it as soon as you get the device, and you won't have any problems. Now this is touch-based recovery. The link is in the description down below, as well as the super user binary. And it's pretty easy to do it. You just go on through and you select the zip from the SD card, and that's all there is to it. So that's about all for this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel and add me to your circles on Google+. Go to plus.AdamOutler.com. Until next time, hack on.